Alright guys, I went to take my razor for a ride around the neighborhood and it just died out of absolutely nowhere to the point where it would almost not even run. So I limped it back to my house and now it won't even stay idling for more than a few seconds. I'm going to show you what's going on here. Fuel pump's making sound. That's pretty obvious. We're gonna go to what code? So check engine. Hold it. First code. Second code. Third code. So let's see, we have this 92, 91. So we're saying misfire on Misfire Detected and misfire on cylinder 1 and 2. So first I had to change the spark plugs because of the misfire code, and then I hooked up my fuel pressure gauge to the fuel rail, which is right here. I'm going to show you what I'm getting now when I turn the key on. So let's see if I can get all this in one shot. So right there, you can see I only got maybe 20, 25 PSI. And this thing should have spiked at almost 60 PSI. And if you saw before, I don't even think I got over 30. I'm thinking there is a blown out O-ring on top of the fuel pump. And the next step is to take this out, cycle the key on, and I think that fuel is actually going to pressurize and drip down around the pump itself. So let's get it out the tank, see what's going on. Okay, so full tank of gas. We got the lock ring off, and what I use is just a oil filter change wrench. Now, if you have a specialty tool, they do make a really nice it's just a circle with a socket on it that actually unscrews it. That'd be really nice to have. It's like $50 or $60, and how often do you really change these? If you're a shop, buy it. If not, just use one of these. There is a arrow on the back of this. It was facing backwards. Make sure you tighten it all the way to where it is facing backwards again, because you have a rubber gasket right here. Now, I actually have taken this out twice now because I wanted to prove the concept that I thought was happening. There is a rubber O-ring right here, right where my finger's pointing. It's green, might look black in the video. What's happening is it's blowing the O-ring out the housing, which should be at the very top right here, internally. So let's bring this outside and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so now we're going to pop this fuel pump cover off right here, and this will expose the little motor. Okay, and now take a note of this O-ring right here. Pop this off, and just wiggle out the wires. There you go. And you can see already the O-ring has fully exposed itself. You can see it, and it's pushing past the housing. It's actually pushing past this area right here where it should be seating, or it should be seating internally, and it's actually going around this housing. So let's get this out. Okay, this actually gives you a little better idea of what's failing here. So I put this housing back on, and it would go in, it would slip in like this. Put the O-ring on, the O-ring's very loose, and when the fuel pressure hits, it's actually pushing the O-ring over the housing like this. Okay? And that's why it is visible. Well, you can't get it in now because of this, but that's why you can see it. Oops. Like this. That's why you can kind of see it in the crack, because it's actually coming up through right here instead of being in the seat, which is down here. I'm thinking $8 fix, so this is good news. So after further review, this pump can move up and down a lot, and I think the actual problem why that O-ring is being able to lift out of its seat is actually this right here. When I feel this, it almost feels like it's fully degraded, and it definitely was rubber, and now it feels like an extremely soft foam. It has no spring back, and right here it's deteriorating. I'm not sure if the camera's picking that up, but it's full of like dry rot cracks. So now I'm thinking about making something, a backing plate here that can smush and then hold this fuel pump tight into this seat right here, because that's what it's lifting and allowing the O-ring to kick sideways inside this crack right here. So let's try that. So here's what I have. Piece of rubber, looks to be about 1/4 inch, which is very similar to the diameter right here. And the more I look at this, this is just completely collapsed, and this is nice and hard. It actually might be too hard, so we're going to see if this works. This really does not have much compression at all, while this has the compression of what feels like foam. So we're going to trim this down, match it to this, and see if this works. Okay, so all I used was a step bit and then a pair of pliers to hold it. We have our general shape, and now all I have to do is I'll cut in the thinner area right here. Yeah, we'll do right here. Rare as I can use scissors to actually make a part. This is kind of nice. And now we have the general shape. So let's get it back together and see what happens. Put this aside. And this is our new rubber fitting. You can see it looks good. Now, will it actually compress on the clips? This is going to be, we'll see. Yeah, it compressed really good. Barely used any force, and now the pump will not move at all. Let's put it back in the razor and see what it does. So, moment of truth, we just drop this in the tank, no lock ring on yet. Have our new replacement rubber horseshoe, so we're going to call it. Let's see what she does. Oh no, it still blew it. It's holding PSI though. Oh, there we go. 60 PSI. Let's pulse it one more time. Hell yeah, brother. So after our test, we had a good, solid PSI reading. We are going to pop off this fuel line, which is just these two retainers, or two clips on each side. A little pain in the butt, comes off pretty easy. And your actual power, which is also your fuel gauge. So make sure you are gentle. Nice. Well, it definitely held pressure. Made a little bit of a mess, but it's okay. You are gonna get fuel somewhere. Guaranteed. So now we push down our pump, and we're gonna put our lid back on. Always wash these off. These always collect dirt, especially if you're a mud guy and running deep mud. That ring just collects dirt. Also, when you push this down, make sure that your rubber gasket is seated correctly. It's pretty easy because of the spring load you have underneath here. You push this down, that it doesn't really seat right, and you're pinching the O-ring, and then you get water in your tank when you go in deep water. use our oil filter wrench and start turning it all the way. And you do need to hold the pump while you do this too. Another set of hands would be nice. I don't have them. Alright, so we got this tightened. I'm only off by maybe 3 to 5 degrees. The arrow was facing here in between the lines, and now it's here. And honestly, grabbing it with these oil filter clamps, probably not the best, because you're actually compressing the joint as you turn it. I don't think just that extra few degrees is going to make a difference. We'll ride around and check this to make sure it's not wet. If you're going to do multiple of these jobs, if you're a shop, buy the correct tool. This is just, I'm in a pinch and I wanted this fixed. But that is your culprit. We're talking just a rubber part that has kind of turned into mush. It's pretty typical in a fuel system. But this allowed the fuel pump to move back and forth like so, and when it did that, the O-ring on top, just from the pressure, 60 psi, blew it out, pushes it up around the housing. I have pulsed this pump probably 10 times from full off, even walked away for hours, and I think I still had maybe 40 psi on the gauge. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's holding PSI. Of course, the regulator is only going to hold your working PSI for so long. It's going to slowly leak down. That's why you always want the pump do a full cycle, and then you would start the machine. That way you're just not starting it with no fuel pressure. Not that it hurts it, but you're cranking it over for no reason. So if this video helps you, please smash that like button, consider subscribing, and remember, sometimes it's just an easy, cheap fix. Could have been a $400 or $500 fix, ended up being free. Thanks for watching, guys.